Nigel Farage probably enjoyed the Conservative Party conference this year more than his own one. In Manchester last week, he made several well-publicised appearances on the fringe. But UKIP's gathering was overshadowed by the troublesome MEP Godfrey Bongo Land Bloom, whose remarks about women who don't clean behind the fridge cannot be repeated here on a Sunday morning. Yesterday, Mr Bloom, now suspended, hit back. If you see me with a pint of bitter, it's not a photo call. Nigel has lost touch. Poor Nigel. Really? Under Mr Farage, UKIP has become a force to be reckoned with in British politics. But can the party at large survive the intense and unforgiving scrutiny of a general election campaign? Well, Nigel, Mr Farage is with me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with Mr Bloom, since I mentioned him.
I thought we might, yeah.
Now, he's clearly very irate, and your problem, it seems to me, is that you lead a party of colourful individualists, not easy to herd, and the question is whether you can keep them on side when you crack the whip as well. You can't be both a disciplinarian and an outsider.
I think there's a big change going on in UKIP. I mean, we were a vehicle in which people could give vent to their views and in electoral terms, lob a few grenades around. Yep. And over the last 18 months, we've changed. We're now a party that are taking elections seriously. And to do that, you need some discipline. Now, that doesn't mean we won't push the boundaries of argument. I want all UKIP people to think freely and do that. But it does mean that we don't need people causing massive distraction.
Does it mean, perhaps, that you have to kowtow a little bit to the liberal media? Because I'm sure there's some of the things that were said that you wouldn't actually be personally outraged about, but you have to pretend to be outraged because that's what the media requires.
What it means is that we've got to focus on our key messages. Look, we are challenging the liberal elite, the media, the political class, on major issues like immigration, the Romanian and Bulgarian entry next year. We're not here trying to win friends amongst the liberal elite, but we are here to focus on our main policies. And Godfrey's problem was he kept making comments about women. That's not part of our manifesto.
No, indeed. Turning then to the policies that are part of your manifesto, let's talk about immigration, since Theresa May is going to be joining us later on. In Nigel Farage's world, what should she be bringing forward to deal with the issue of immigration right now?
Well, I think what's really interesting is that at the three big speeches, Labour, Lib Dem, Conservative, not one of them mentioned the fact we're opening the doors to Romania and Bulgaria next year. Now, Theresa May this morning in the Sunday Times is saying she'll deport foreign criminals. Well, can she tell us, please, what she's going to do about Romanian criminals? And can she tell us what she's going to do about the fact we're opening up the door next year to more foreign, sadly, Romanian criminals? So the honest truth is I'm challenging them and saying, are you prepared to do anything?
Do you feel that you can't actually do anything while we are part of the European Court of Human Rights structure?
I think there are two things. Firstly, as part of the ECHR, there isn't much we can do. But secondly, as a member of the European Union, we cannot control our own borders. And that's what really, when the referendum comes, I think that'll be the central issue.
So this is a constitutional question. The Conservatives can only go so far without dealing with the constitutional issue, which takes me on to the story in the Mail on Sunday about bringing forward the referendum. I mean, you're plugged into parts of the Conservative Party. Do you think this is going to happen, bringing forward the referendum? Would that shoot your fox if it did?
That isn't what matters. We are not in politics. I'm not in politics for the usual reasons. This is not about climbing the greasy pole. It's not about attaining rank. It's about winning. And it's about getting back the independence and democracy of this country.
But for you, a referendum next year would be a big win, wouldn't it?
I'd be absolutely delighted. And you know what? So would British industry and British business, because the argument that we shouldn't leave this for 4 years, that actually a renegotiation is pretty futile, they're strong arguments. I think the Conservatives' problem is that what Adam Afriyie has done, he's put his finger on the real problem, and that is 4 years ago, Mr Cameron gave us a cast-iron guarantee of a referendum. This time last year, he was saying no referendum. He's now saying there should be a referendum, and people aren't quite sure what to believe.
Everybody seems to think that you'll do well in the European European elections next year. But they also then go on to say what will happen is that when it comes to the general election, the single argument against you that will really work is vote for UKIP, vote for Nigel Farage, and you'll let in Labour. What we saw in the elections on May the 2nd across the English counties was this argument being tripped out. If you vote UKIP, Labour will get in. What actually happened in 150 seats was if you voted UKIP, you got UKIP. And what we'll be doing after the European, as you know, are a bit different.
After the European elections next year, we will be targeting our seats for the general election, and we're not doing it to split anybody's vote. We'll be doing it to get a decent representation of UKIP MPs in Westminster.
Nonetheless, there are 36 seats, marginal seats, I'm told, where a decent UKIP vote would defeat the Conservative incumbent and let in a opposition.
That is the Conservative narrative. You know, the reason the Tories are doing badly isn't because of me or UKIP, it's because their leader has marched them off towards social democracy since he became leader in 2005. That's why the Tory party is doing badly, and everybody's ignoring the fact that UKIP's greatest growth has been amongst old Labour voters in the north of England. We take our vote from across the spectrum.
But nonetheless, if I take the example of somebody like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's a Eurosceptic Conservative MP, presumably UKIP is not going to target him in quite the way that you would target a Europhile Conservative MP.
I mean, we will target our resources where we've won county council seats, where we've won district council seats, following the model that the Lib Dems used under Paddy Ashdown, building on local strength. And if you can win at council level, you can win at parliamentary level. And that our focus is not to worry about the others. Our focus is to get UKIP into Westminster, because if we do, then there really will be a referendum.
What about this idea of doing deals from the bottom up, allowing local parties to work together?
There's been huge speculation
Indeed.
about whether there'll be a deal or not a deal. It's perfectly clear that Mr Cameron and the Cabinet view us as being part of the lower orders. And we're really not good enough for them. All I've said is, if people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, if his association wants to talk to ours in Somerset, then I'm perfectly relaxed about that.
Right.
But I think, quite frankly,
what would the price be for that?
I don't think it'll happen. Well, the legislation has changed. You know, you can now run on a joint ticket. So somebody could run as a Conservative joint UKIP candidate, or even in some cases a Labour joint UKIP candidate.
But they have to want to get Britain out of the EU, presumably,
well, of course
and they have to want to end immigration.
Not end immigration, have controlled immigration. That's a very different thing.
Sure. As to your own position, it's been speculated that you're going to stand possibly in Thanet South.
I know. I read all that in the papers yesterday.
And?
It's actually, it's the last thing on my mind. The one thing the media are forgetting, when they talk about the next election, they're talking about 2015. We, in 8 months' time, have a European election. On the same day, there are 5,000 council seats.
I think I've got a first.
And my focus, I was actually thinking more...
I think I've got a politician's answer from Nigel Farage.
Well, to be honest with you, I was thinking about Folkestone, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to say where I'm standing. I'm not even going to think about where I'm standing.
But you are going to stand.
Oh, I'm going to stand. Yeah. But let's get the European elections out of the way
first. OK, Nigel Farage, for now, thank you very much indeed. So, a lot to talk about. One thing that I just throw into the pot is what Michael Heseltine said just the other day. He said, of course UKIP are all racists. We all know that. Were you surprised? Were you hurt by that?
He's just an out-of-touch old dinosaur. He's the man, of course, that would still want to have us in the euro. He can't bear the thought there's even a Eurosceptic party in this country. Frankly, the more he insults us, the more he insults many of his own supporters, because Conservative people, voters know UKIP's not racist, but it is about standing up for the country.
Theresa May, as a politician of the centre-right, do you think actually UKIP has done your cause quite a lot of good? I mean, it's gingered up the Conservatives in a way that perhaps wouldn't have happened without a party to the right of your party.
No, I think what the Conservative Party is doing is absolutely rightly looking ahead to what we can offer people at the next general election. We want, obviously, to get back with a majority government so that we can put into place the various changes that we're committed to, like the scrapping of the Human Rights Act and various other commitments that are Conservative commitments.
Would you pull us out of the European Court of Human Rights? I asked the Prime Minister, and he seemed to say yes, probably, was his... I guess I summarise, but...
Yeah, what I think is absolutely right is that we need to look at the relationship we have with the European Court and the European Convention. That work is being led by my colleague Chris Grayling at the moment. And if we need to, if it takes pulling out of the European Convention to sort out our human rights laws, then that should be on the table.
But that's fine, but we can't do that and stay a member of the European Union. The two are completely linked, you know that, and yet we never have that conversation. Are you saying we can leave that and stay part of the European Union?
What I'm saying, Nigel, is that we need to take a sensible approach in looking at how we sort out our relationship with the European Court and with the European Convention.
Well, they've become one of the same thing. They become one of the same thing. I mean, the Commission, the European Commission, are perfectly clear. You cannot be an EU member if you withdraw from the auspices of the court. OK,
that stone worked quite well. One more little pebble into the pond, which is the Adam Afriyie amendment to bring the referendum forward to 2014. Do you think that's a goer, looking at the numbers and thinking about your party?
I think Adam's got it wrong. I think what we need to do is to be negotiating that settlement with the European Union and then put to the British people the Europe of the future and not the Europe of the past, and give them that opportunity of to say whether to be in or out.
But is this a flea bite or a real threat, do you think, getting this vote through?
No? I think what is crucial is that we have at the next election a Conservative Party that will be offering people that renegotiation of a new settlement with Europe, looking to the future and then putting that to the British people in an in or out referendum. Okay. And what the amendment possibly could do, as James Wharton himself, who's putting the referendum bill through Parliament, has said, is it could actually jeopardise that bill.
No. When do you think we're going to see the renegotiated plan? David Cameron's.
Well, I don't think. I mean, there is no serious renegotiation on offer. Indeed, Mr. Barroso, the Commission President, said that this week. This is merely a tactic to kick the issue into the long grass beyond the next election. And what's going to shock the Tories is when Ed Miliband makes the same pledge for a referendum too, which he will.
This is a serious renegotiation, and then a referendum for the British people to make their decision.
On this note of genial consensus, we've run out of time. Thank you both very much indeed.